Hey howdy hey, welcome back to Trek on the Tube, and welcome to a bit of an audio video, because, I'm still going to be throwing images, photographs up on screen, but you won't be seeing me, because the background, the office is in shambles, Mother on the Tube is arriving soon, so we can't be showing what's going on in the back. Things are getting reorganized. I do apologize for that, I hope it's okay. Anyway, it is yet again time to talk about Star Trek 4, or Star Trek 14, depending on how you see things, and the reason for that is because we have yet again got some news to talk about. Honestly, I've been hitting you with videos about this on and off project for years at this point. The first was probably like 5 years ago, and since then I've made at least 4 videos about it. But today it's different because it's not just a news video. I also have a little theory I'd like to share at the end. But before we get into that, in case you're not caught up with the events leading up to the movie that we're supposedly gonna get in 2023, here's pretty much how the timeline of it all goes. Following the release of Into Darkness, the studio set out to create a film that put George and James Kirk on screen together, aka Chris Pine and Chris Hemsworth. But that didn't really work out, even if the script was well on its way to be finished, so instead, they called upon Simon Pegg in some sort of red alert last minute situation to write a new story. Of course, our boy came through, along with Doug Young. They slapped Beyond together and enabled the studio to still have a release at the due date. And then, once that film came out, the idea was to go back to the unfinished script about both Kirks and use that for what would now become Star Trek 4 instead of 3. That, for the sake of simplicity, I'm going to start calling Kelvin 4. Anyway, a little time passes and it becomes more and more evident Kelvin 4 is not gonna happen. Most of the actors are moving on to other things. Hemsworth thinks he's too cool because he's Thor, or rather comes up with this bullshit excuse of the script being not strong enough, in his opinion, when really, it's about money. For the record, I'm absolutely fine with big actors wanting more money. Even Pine was apparently asking for more, and, the studio just wouldn't meet that. I just don't like the irony of saying a Star Trek script isn't good enough, but also being in movies like The Huntsman, Men in Black International, and Ghostbusters 2016. But hey, moving on. There was also the sad passing of Anton that didn't really help things either. So more time passes, the shows start coming out, Discovery, Short Treks, and at that point, even the thought of ever getting a Kelvin 4 kinda just fades. It's also right about this time we actually started getting the Kelvin trilogy box sets. So yeah, it almost felt like the studio itself saw the story as complete. The second story of our chapter begins. Enter Quentin Tarantino. The man is on a podcast and mentions his love for Star Trek. He quotes a couple episodes from the original series and The Next Generation as his favorites, and also expresses interest in maybe, perhaps, exploring one of those ideas in film. Very quickly, he starts talking with the studio. He gets the man who wrote The Revenant, that one movie that everyone talked about all the time until they completely forgot it existed. Anyway, he gets him to start working on a script. The internet jumps on this, debating whether or not Star Trek should go R-rated or not, completely ignoring the fact that Discovery was already TVMA. But you guessed it, this whole thing never follows through. Tarantino is caught up with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I think he was promoting it at that point. And even if he did say that if he would ever do a franchise film, it would be a Star Trek one, he also talked about taking a step back from filmmaking and focusing on his family. So the whole thing kinda just disappears. Time passes once again. Picard is coming out, Lower Decks is coming out, Kelvin 4 is no longer in the minds of anyone at this point, but suddenly, news of a man named Noah Hawley hits the internet. This guy is the creative behind Legion and Fargo, and is connected to Star Trek through Jeff Russo, composer for Fargo and for some of the latest Star Trek shows. At that point, there's a couple mentions of him being the person behind the next film, a standalone, apparently, not in any way connected to the Kelvin trilogy. But then, of course, this whole new thing, much like the previous ones, kinda just fizzles away into nothingness as well. No more news, ever. Everything we're talking about here took place over, months and years, by the way. We're making a recap. Anyway, the adventure is still not over, because now enters S.J. Clarkson. For like a minute there, everyone seemed to believe finally the studio had made up their mind. They were going to do a movie, and they had it directed, and they wanted it directed by S.J. Clarkson. She's directed many episodes of television, and everyone was pretty hype about finally getting a female director helming a Star Trek film, but very quickly we all realized that that wasn't happening either. Instead, Clarkson got tapped in to direct the pilot for the Game of Thrones spin-off show BLOODMOON, the one that never happened, probably because it's best to wait until people forget how garbage the ending to your current show is before announcing a spin-off. And also, it's best to not name that spin-off like a Twilight movie, BLOODMOON, but I digress. The point is, Clarkson was busy with another engagement, so that Star Trek thing that she was supposedly going to direct got scrapped too. At this point, we've pretty much arrived at present day. The Star Trek shows are doing good. The fandom is growing. The divide created by the J.J. Abrams Kurtzman vision is no longer as palpable online. People are even rediscovering the Kelvin films and enjoying them more after simply accepting them for the tangent in storytelling that they are. And so comes the announcement of Star Trek 2023. Now you'll have to excuse me because when it comes to this part, I'm kind of a little fuzzy on the exact timeline of events, but the gist of it is, this new film was originally set to be released on June 9th, 2023, but due to a complete reshuffling of Paramount's schedule, I can't tell you if that's due to the merger or not, or if it's just because they changed the CEO, I don't know. Anyway, the movie got pushed back to December 22nd, 2023. J.J. Abrams confirmed the new film will be with what he called the original cast. Now he's referring to the Kelvin cast. At that time, it was a whole big deal because apparently none of the actors or their agents knew about this, but since then though, all of the contracts have been signed and everyone is ready to go, everything's set in motion, and that's pretty much where things were left. Kelvin 4, December 22nd, 2023, directed by one Matt Shakman, the guy who directed all of the episodes of Marvel Disney's WandaVision. Which brings us to today's news. Matt Shakman left. He's no longer directing the film that seemingly does not want to be. Paramount talked about scheduling issues. Shakman is set to direct the new Fantastic Four for the MCU, so he can't do both at the same time. Look, I'm going to assume money talks and Disney just have more of it to offer, and that's why he chose that over the Trek film, though perhaps it's a creatively driven decision, you know, considering he's already directed MCU stuff. Maybe he just wants to explore that avenue a little more. We don't know, and I guess it's not fair to assume. Regardless, dude is gone. That's what concerns us. He's gone. It's not that big a deal, though. It's not like, you know, he was the singular creative mind behind the project. They have writers, producers, and other people working on this thing, and last-minute director changes are no big deal in Hollywood, and this isn't even that last minute, so yeah, that's where the news ends. You're all caught up. The bottom line, officially, is, as it stands, is that the new Star Trek film, set in the Kelvin timeline, with the previous Kelvin actors reprising their roles, will be released on December 22nd, 2023. Now here's where my theory comes into play, and I could be completely wrong for reasons that you should feel free to list below if you so desire, but I feel like this film will make it or break it for the future of Star Trek theatrical releases. Basically, I'm not saying they're never gonna make a Star Trek movie ever again if this one isn't successful, but I do think that if it flops, for the foreseeable future, all the Star Trek films will be streaming releases for Paramount Plus only. No more actual theatrical releases. Star Trek has always been a TV show first anyway. Like, the films have always been complementary. It is possible to tell a good, you know, quote-unquote Star Trek story in film, but I do think the subject matter and execution of it work better in episodic capsules encompassed within a greater story provided by, you know, seasons of a show. As I said, though, it is possible to capture the charm and essence of what Star Trek is at heart and make a good movie with it, but for mainstream audiences and considering the current theatrical landscape, I think releasing back-to-back successful movies would be tough. And it's just not an economic risk worth taking. So they'll do this one. No Tarantino, no Hawley, no new cast, or, you know, completely standalone story. They're gonna play it safe and bring back the cast that we know and that the mainstream audience knows. It'll be harmless, inoffensive, it'll be not too out there, it'll be a popcorn adventure in space. It'll be written in such a way that'll nicely bookend the Kelvin adventures without necessarily being a complete end. It's not gonna cost too much, and it'll test the waters and decide the fate of Star Trek in theaters. I mean, honestly, even at this point in time, why wouldn't Viacom CBS be doing streaming releases, you know, with the Disney model? Put new movies out on the platform and charge extra. It's way cheaper for them. I'm not saying I like the idea. I actually hate it. I'm just saying it makes more sense. But anyway, yeah. That's my theory. I believe that this will be a deciding film. I'm not arguing for some sort of mass movement, you know, everyone go see it, everyone boycott it. I really, no. I'm just interested, and questioning, I guess, the future of the franchise, or rather, the future of its format and delivery. That's it for me. What do you guys think about Kelvin 4? Are you excited? Are you not? What other project would you have liked to see happen, and what director would you choose for the upcoming film? Thank you so much for watching / listening, I guess. Like, subscribe, share. A huge thanks to the channel patrons. And as usual, you know, you can hit that thanks button to support me. But most of all, live long and prosper.